if you just joined in here really quick, if you don't mind, share the stream. I'm sending out notifications to the people who are subscribed at patreon.com/infiniteplanesociety. If you sign up there for $1 a month, you get live notifications, newsletters, and inside information, ebooks released in advance. You're basically at the cutting edge, but to stay there, because we're completely scattered as we have been, and it's all by design. They scattered everyone around like this, but we're wrangling everyone back together into a big, effective research network. And so, to be a part of it and also to help keep it going, subscribe at Patreon for $1 a month. I'll be back in about 2 minutes.
Destroyed all the papers and blew up the Challenger crew. Except for the twinsies, space is fake AF. Space is fake AF.
Okay, here we go. Looks like I just sent it out, so if you're on the newsletter list, you'll be getting a link here in just a moment. We have about 27, 28 people here so far. All of you are considered to be domestic terrorists by your government, your FBI, and your president agrees. He agrees that if you believe in conspiracy theories, you're a candidate for involuntary confinement. That's what he said after the fake shooting at the Walmart by the bowl cut. Go ahead and share the stream again. Hey, look, Full Metal Jacket says penguins will not divide us. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I did catch a bit of that. And look, last night I gave something of just a critique. I wanted to critique the entire response to what we were suggesting here, because I thought at some point they're going to refute my claims in the book, Mandoozled, the Mandela effect debunked. At some point they're going to have to admit that they're using a logical fallacy, and they're going to have to excuse it, but they're going to have to admit I have some points. And I kind of wanted to address that today. This everybody knows argument, I'm kind of sick of hearing it. I got really tired of the all the ancient Greeks knew therefore argument, which I don't buy. And I think this everybody knows that Timmy fell down the well. I don't think that's a good argument whatsoever. Alright, so far we're joined by Benton, Xbox, Thirst for Truth, Gordo's Garage, Jordan, Osher, Chad. Thanks for arriving early. New Perspective says Ryan Starvely knows what's up. And really, it's not about any one individual. But I am talking about Mandela pushers, or Mandela effect pushers. And we'll get into detail here. I've been critical of it. I've been examining it and looking at all the possible explanations. But I don't really think that we should let them slide with this everybody knows argument. How many people constitutes an everybody? 1,000? A million? 2 million? Can a single person have a personalized Mandela effect? And again, when it comes to the idea of reality shifting, however you imagine that this happens, however it happens, whether it's CERN or it's some other process with this reality shifting, how do you call something a change? Like, what was the reality before? Like, what was the objective reality? Is there an objective reality that we're changing from? Or is everything constantly morphing? Flat Fact says, I saw a penguin hanging from a noose. Who does that? Yeah, apparently he went to the zoo there. Somebody should call that city, find out which one it was. Stavely lynched a penguin because of our disagreement with the Mandela effect. I posted a picture of it earlier. I don't think I have it now. Okay, so let's get right to business here. A few new things to look at, some considerations. I put down about 15 points that were raised in my mind by watching the last video where they were pretty much, I would call it advocating for the Mandela effect. They're apologists is what they are. They're basically advocating or defending something that I find to be indefensible in terms of logic and reason. And so I just want to ask the question and have it answered. When can you abandon logic and reason and still call yourself a truther or still act like you're somehow concerned with truth? Like, I don't believe that religions are concerned with truth. I think religions are concerned with conformity. And I think that what we see here is a concern with consensus and conformity. And the group itself, the group dynamics, are pretty much textbook culty dynamics, where it's about in group preference, us versus them, and they spend more time shaming the non believers than finding more miracles to bolster their faith. Flat out faith says Mandela, Shamdella, whatever Della, who knows Della. Chad says Fruit Loops was sued and had to change their name in 1963 to Fruit with OO, as to no real fruit was in the product. So, what will they say about that fact? You see, because they're very fact averse. Are they going to say, well, that fact was inserted into the timeline to hide the fact that they changed the name of Fruit Loops? Like, to me, this is totally an intelligence agency playing games with people where the ones who see through the matrix, like, oh, 9/11's fake, and they did something with the Fruit Loops. Fruit Loops? Yeah, the Fruit Loops changed, and it proves that the reality is shifting. And suddenly, your testimony about 9/11 means nothing. Xbox says Stavely's a trans truther, don't assume his memories. Yeah, we have added the affected as another protected identity group, kind of grafted him onto the LGBT. Why not? Because trans-dimensional people are acting like troll flakes who need special protection. Thirst for Truth says ME pushers are desperately trying to keep their congregation calm with the ME backlash. Well, look, the community around this whole thing is pretty much a part of the Flat Earth community, and they already exiled the Infinite Plane Society a long time ago. We've been their bad guy. We've been their Satan, and we've proudly served. We're like, fine, you want to demonize us? Sure. So we make memes, you know. We make videos, we create content, come up with things, but we never hurt anybody, and we don't resort to threats, you know. I've been threatened with violence by Brian, who said he would beat the F out of me, and then Karen said, I will cut you or something. But she tells everybody that, so I guess that's just to be expected. That's how she says she likes you, I think. Anyway, they didn't care what I said, because well, what does he matter? He's just a shill. He's an admitted Illuminati, Masonic, Satanic shill, and probably a Jew at that. So they dismiss me. But then Nathan Oakley, who they respect, comes out, and Nathan Oakley says that the Mandela effect is bunk. Nathan Oakley says there's nothing to it. It's a total fraud, and he doesn't think it should be mixed in with serious flat earth research. So they take Oakley seriously, and they're intimidated by him, and so when he says it's fake, it actually has some weight. Full Metal Jacket Bear says the Mandela effect being a giant social experiment for information sounds logical. Sure, I think the Mandela effect is basically there to poison those of us who are adhering to objective reality with regards to how we analyze the news. When you call the news fake, it's fake compared to what? Should be your question. Well, it's fake compared to objective reality. Fake news is not about bias. Fake news is about, did they portray reality, or is this a fantasy, an augmentation? Did they use some movie magic? Did they use actors? Is it fabricated? And so we who are disarticulating the propaganda daily, taking it apart, looking into it, we're eviscerating their stories as their stories are promulgated. And we're comparing it to reality. Reality is the standard by which we call something fake. So if you're going to be someone who's saying that 9/11 was totally phony, but then you also think that reality is not objective anymore, well, you've just pretty much said that you're not competent to testify. That's all. You're inebriated. It's basically, I think this is more or less a metaphysical explanation that isn't as good as the mundane explanation. And this happens with all kinds of miracles. Most miracles, it's just a matter of opinion and consensus. Full Metal Jacket says we've been purposefully confused. Well, it's called a double bind. Here's how you know. It's either or, Jiff or Jiffy. They don't give you an opt out like I don't know. I don't have a clear recollection. It puts you on the spot. And if that one doesn't get you, they list them off one by one. This morning, the Mandela pusher we're discussing, criticizing his work, rattled off a list of about 33 Mandela effects back to back, thinking that, okay, one of them's going to get you. And if one gets you, you're affected. Welcome to the awakening. And I don't think these are legitimate miracles. And right now I just kind of feel like I am somewhat playing devil's advocate. I think we all are. This is the position, the person who is there to proffer reasons why someone shouldn't be canonized. It's a role, I think. And so they're going to say everything that we think is a miracle is a miracle. Everything I misremembered is a miracle. And I'm saying, I don't know. We have to scrutinize these. Commenter says, I'm not confused. If that was the case, how come it didn't affect me? They'll say that you are affected. You just don't know it. Iconoclasm says, Mandela is a build-up for the transstellar alien prophesized blue beam invasion. Okay, so let's start with this. This is what I discussed last night. The truth is out. Without the strategic use of logical fallacies, it cannot exist. And if you haven't read it, you can read it for free. Mandoozled, The Mandela Effect Debunked. So you can read it for free. So I know Karen B is very critical of me writing books and making a living as a writer. So it's free, Karen. You can read it. Well, I mean, you can download it. Not sure if you can read. Okay, the Mandela effect, can it withstand debate or scientific scrutiny? That's really the question here. So let's start with this one. And then I'll do my comments first because I had 15 comments, and then I'll go into some specific debunks. So number one, can you debunk something if it hasn't been bunked in the first place? And the answer is no. It's not falsifiable. You can't debunk unicorns. You can't debunk any of these things that there's no evidence for. It's not even in the realm of scientific inquiry. It's fantasy. It's occult. It's mysticism. That's number one. Number two, lies. Okay, so lies are not true, but they're treated as true until someone fact checks it against objective reality. What we're doing here is reality testing. We're testing our claims against reality. That's what you're doing when you're testing the globe. You're testing pseudoscience. You're testing claims. So, here, we're just testing these claims against reality, and lies are claims that don't add up. That under scrutiny, they just fall apart. So what I'm asking, are Mandela effects lies against objective reality? Are they lies? Are they collectively agreed upon lies? Chad says the 1970s music group The Arrows originally sang I Love Rock and Roll. The lyric Dancing by the Jukebox is the same as the Joan Jett's version. Interesting trivia, but look, if you're going to suggest that every misremembered lyric is a reality shift, well then every misremembered lyric, every misheard catchphrase, this is just cognitive chaos. And I don't think it's sustainable. It doesn't hold up to scrutiny or logic, and we're showing this. Okay, another question I have, and if you have answers, comment below. Can isolated things change without ripple effects? For instance, if GIF changed from Jiffy, was it the same artist? Was it the same graphics designer? Because I was looking at the Jiffy thing because I was trying to reconfigure it and make it into a GIF so that I could compare the two. And I couldn't make Jiffy fit on the label to where you could see it in one view and still have it be somewhat aesthetically pleasing. So it would require a completely different font. So I find that one very unlikely. GIF, the way it's written, if you look at the font that they use, it's clearly designed to fill that label. I just don't think you can make Jiffy look good. And again, why Jif and Jiffy and not Jif, Jiffy, or Jift? How come there's no third option? How come there's no opt out? It's because the Mandela effect is based on the interrogator bias planting a double bind into you. They're tying you up in knots. It's a mind game and it's insidious. Jay says Jiffy Pop is popcorn. Yeah, and then you have the Jiffy cornbread. Okay, so let's continue. Other details from these supposedly infallible memories. And this is one of the things they get wrong from the get go. Your memory is not infallible. It's just not. That's not how it works. So, can a Mandela affectee explain to me how Jiffy was made to fit on the label? Were the letters smaller? Because if you're going to say it used to be Jiffy, you should be able to tell me what it looked like. Was it pink font, yellow font, red font? You can't tell. You can't say. You wouldn't know. Number 5. Kind of like all these people who've seen the Sinbad movie. Oh yeah, Sinbad played a genie in a movie. Really, what was the plot? They can't tell you. Okay, so everybody knows that Timmy fell down the well, says one ME pusher. Everybody knows that Timmy fell down the well. Okay, for now we'll ignore the everybody knows thing, but I'll get to that later. So, my question for the ME pusher, how did they get him out of the well? If everyone knows, how come nobody can give out any specific script details? Everybody knows Timmy fell down the well. How did they get him out? Was it a rope? Was it a chain? A ladder? Did he climb out? They can't tell you. So they don't even have complete memories. I'm 10,000% certain that they don't remember any details. So what was that about, this infallible memory? Okay, 6. False memories or lies. A lie, though, it's worth pointing out, a lie requires that the person who believes it accepts the burden of proof that you did not provide. Oh, you don't have any evidence, trust me. Okay, well, it works. If you trust somebody, they can lie and they can get away with something because you accepted the burden of proof that what they said was true. And I just want to point out that the trust me or believe me, like believe me, I know Bigfoot's real. I'm a Bigfoot knower, not a Bigfoot believer. I know it. Okay, well, that is still pushing a burden of proof on me. So I can choose to believe it. In other words, there's a similarity here between this accepting someone else's miraculous claim and being duped by a liar. It's the same technique, but in one instance, you're being duped by a liar. In the other, you are accepting a lie, or what might be a lie, because you have a low standard of evidence. And why wouldn't you hold everybody to the same standard? The standard being objective reality. So it seems to me that the Mandela affected people feel like lying is okay. Confabulation is okay. Objective reality, well, there are no lies because there's no truth. Nothing is true, everything is permitted. Jordan said, I will dedicate the rest of my life to finding a copy of Shazam on VHS. Well, here's the thing. If you had some successful movie that was on prime time and it involved someone like Sinbad and it disappeared, guess what? You could write that script based on your recollection of that movie you watched 50 times and you could sell it to Hollywood. And hey, I got this great idea for a genie movie about Sinbad. I guess I must have dreamed it, or maybe I snagged it from a parallel dimension. And they'll be like, well, whatever, this is great. We'll make it. And they'll remake it based on your recollections. ACW says, I'm still here even though it's harder to catch lives. You have to get on board with the Patreon $1 per month cover charge. It's totally worth it. The memes are free. Infinite Plane Society. Just go there. InfinitePlaneSociety.com. There's a link to my Patreon. $1 a month cover charge also gives you newsletters, access to ebooks in advance of everyone else, and private live streams whenever we're airing something that may not be for the public. Like we aired the second hour of the conversation between John LeBon and myself, and that's the conversation that started all this. A private talk between John LeBon and myself threw the Mandela affected universe into a tizzy. So we have been having responses. I'm responding to their statements, and they're calling me names. Pretty simple. Portal Complex says Mandela effect is the new Alzheimer's. Okay, let's continue. So I'm talking about the burden of proof, and when you're accepting a miracle or a lie, in one case you're being duped, in the other you're engaging in self-deception. Now, I also want to point out that fake science, aka the moon landing, deep space, climate change, and fake news, fake shootings, fake terror attacks, and all the rest, fake science and fake news are also pushing a burden of proof onto you, the believer. So here we are drawing a firm line between what we know and what we believe, and then we get this cult of believers trying to contaminate our objective research, not just into the news media, but into the fake science. Joined by Glenn Clark. Thanks for joining. Marcus Puzio, New Jersey, watching. And really quick here, I want to point out that the Auto Hoaxer handbooks are out of signed copies. So if you signed up for the $10 a month on Patreon, you got your copy. I may be ordering copies of Deepfaked next. But I'm actually thinking now, I'm probably going to take the book Mandoozled and add another 50 pages because since that book was published, a lot has happened. So let's continue. People who don't believe the fake news are called conspiracy theorists, whereas people who don't believe in the Mandela effect are called Mandela deniers. You see this double standard where you don't want to be labeled by the media for your non-consent, for not believing, and then you're also going to attack the non-believers? Gordo's Garage says Mandela affected creates penguin lynchers. Oh yeah, they're getting violent. And I was actually suggesting, and I'll put this on the screen for you really quick. I was gonna say, hey, if you Mandela affected want to start doing something to the non-believers, you might want to look into necklacing. And necklacing is something that was innovated by the Mandelas, and it's kind of like burning someone at the stake, but instead you just throw a tire over them, over their arms and torso. Tire, of course, being filled with gasoline, and then you light it. See, if you get rid of all the non-believers, if you suffer not a witch to live, guess what? You get your purified reality. You get your utopia. Number 8. These are just my observations. I have a blog here posting 15 observations about the Mandela effect. And these are comments that I've had after watching a couple responses to our responses. There's a link to the blog if you want to follow it yourself. Thirst for Truth says, the ME pushers know they're lying, but the patients are actually believing the broken memories is truth. Well, this is exactly what happened in Mirage Men, the documentary, where the Air Force was hiring special agents to spread stories to conspiracy theorists, and then they said it took on a life of its own. Marcus says, I work at Tires. I have plenty of old tires laying around. Yeah, you could sell them necklacing kits. Oh, your family doesn't believe you that it used to be Jiffy? Take them out back. And it's really not even a joke. If you look at the psychology of the group, that's what they do. When someone is outgrouped, they basically get the stoning. They get the burning. They get pushed into the ghettos of the internet. They are basically operating like any other cult. Number 9, there is no such thing as the unaffected, only deniers. This is a quote by a Mandela pusher last night, direct quote. There is no such thing as the unaffected, only deniers. Okay, well, guess what? You're an infidel by that logic. You're an infidel. You're a sinner, and you're a polluter, and just fill in the blank. You're an oppressor. There's probably some label that can be attached to you because you're not a believer in someone else's orthodoxy. Well, add to your list of things that you're a denier of. Well, now you're also a Mandela effect denier. No, they're not objective reality deniers, because objective reality is not their standard. Their standard is their subjective belief system. I mean, this is intriguing to watch. I don't know if it's going to burn down or get worse. We'll see. Now, after he said there's no such thing as the unaffected, only deniers, he did say, well, I guess there are some people with no idea, so they get an out. So the people who don't know that they've been affected, they're okay. You don't have to kill them yet because they're not actually non believers. So it's basically a convert or die proposition, and it goes along with God's notion in the Bible. The narcissistic God says, it is better to have never known the Lord than to have known the Lord and turned your back on him. Paraphrasing, I wasn't there. But the idea is if you meet God, then you say he sucks and you leave, you're worse than the people who never heard of him in the first place. Because you didn't, because you actually rejected him. Commenter says, finally caught a live show. Well, look, we're under a whole lot of attack, not us in particular, but everybody involved in content creation. It's not just those of us on the fringe or cutting edge, depending on which way you're oriented. If you don't want to miss out on anything, you have to go to infiniteplainsociety.com, get on the email list, and pay the $1 cover charge for live notifications. Osher says, I didn't know Ace is so stupid. Marco says, Jif peanut butter. Chad says, Jif. Yeah, it's definitely Jif. I was looking at the label. There's no way you could fit Jiffy on it. Okay, number 10. You can't debunk something that can't be proven to exist. As I said earlier, can you debunk something that hasn't been bunked? No, you can't. See Hitchens' razor. So Hitchens' razor is something that I think does away with everything that they bring up. Hitchens' razor, this is from Wikipedia. It's an epistemological razor expressed by the writer Christopher Hitchens, asserting that the burden of proof regarding the truthfulness of a claim lies with the one who makes the claim. If this burden is not met, then the claim is unfounded, and its opponents need not argue to dismiss it. Quote, what can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. Simple. This is pretty much something that looks like it's been compared to a certain Latin proverb. What is asserted gratuitously may be denied gratuitously, which was used in the 19th century. Okay, number 11. And this is just worth pointing out. Those of you who consider yourselves to be scientists or engineers, those of you who are at least trying to represent yourselves as in search of the truth about the world or its shape or any of this stuff. For example, FeedCore. If you're one of those individuals, then you are pretty much sacrificing your scientific integrity. So my question would be, for those of you in FeedCore or anybody who supports that, are they familiar with the concept of falsifiability? Falsifiability. And this also connects to the Hitchens razor. So I'm saying that the believers in the Mandela effect are sacrificing their scientific integrity, and I don't care what you say about what the laser did over the lake. If you're also someone who thinks that your misremembrances are somehow indicative of reality itself shifting. Okay, here's my latest personal Mandela effect. And again, there has to be personal Mandela effects if this is a subjective based reality. So, the way I remember the Bible, Jesus climbed into the Statue of Liberty's torch, followed by a wolf and a lion. And he proclaimed, Luke, I am a box of chocolates. And he revealed his silver leg. How many of you have this memory? Again, it was Jesus ascending the Statue of Liberty's torch, opening the Bible to a lion and a lamb saying, Luke, I am a box of chocolates, before showing that one of his legs was silver, they're not both gold. Anybody else share this memory? No? Well, if you do, let me know, because if there's 10,000 of us, we get to have our own Mandela effect, and we get to impose it on the non-believers. You see how absurd this is, right? Okay, number 13. Hey, okay, so back to Timmy in the well. When Timmy falls in the well, the most iconic episode, quote. Wait, really quick here. We do have some people who remember this. Okay, Osher, X Pac, Mo. Okay, Joe Martinez. Yeah, you guys also believe this one. You have the same effect. Jesus climbing on the Statue of Liberty's torch, followed by a wolf and a lion saying, Luke, I am a box of chocolates. And then he shows off his silver leg. Jay says, sounds familiar. Travis says, aren't they saying it different now? That's exactly how I remember it. Yeah, they changed it. Salty Siren, I definitely do. Yeah, he did. He said, Luke, I am a box of chocolates. Not Luke, I'm your box of chocolates. And he did show off a silver leg. They'll try to say that that was just reflecting the torch, but no, no, one leg is gold, one is silver. Not going to debate it. Everybody knows. Chad says it just came to me. Post Globe Syndicate says, I remember he also had braces. Did Jesus have braces? Now, I know that Dolly had a bowl cut. New Perspective says, I remember it exactly the same way, except Jesus had a monocle. Wait, Jesus doesn't have a monocle? No, he doesn't have a monocle. That looks weird. Does it look weird to anybody else that Jesus doesn't have a monocle? And it looks like Jesus is a cutter. Look at that cut under his arm. Because you know they put the nails through his hands, not through his wrist. Was he a cutter? I guess this might be how they did the drink my blood, eat of my flesh. Netflix Fast and Furious cartoon, episode 6, at 10 minutes and 40 seconds, they say, it's just a flat earther with a homemade rocket. Ooh, nice. Shout out to Mad Mike Hughes. Let me go ahead and take note of that, and I'll see if I can locate that. I just canceled my Netflix subscription, so those of you who have Netflix, remember to cancel it before your free trial expires. They make it hard to find, so search in your Google or ask Siri, how do I terminate my Netflix? I watch it in doses. I'll go for like a month and I'll binge watch all the sci-fi to know what's being put out there. Okay, let's continue. Everybody knows Timmy fell down the well. It's iconic. You can't deny. Everybody knows. You all know it. Everybody knows. This is a direct quote from a Mandela effect pusher. Now, I don't remember Timmy falling down a well. I don't. So I'm not part of everybody? Exactly. I'm a non-believer. And non-believers deserve to get necklaced by burning tires. Or burned at the stake. It's another Mandela effect. They say the Salem witches were hanged, not burned at the stake. That's a Mandela effect. No, it's not. I remember when I was in school and we learned about the Salem witches, I did a project with some other students where we created a gallows, for a display piece. They only burn witches at the stake in Europe. Like, that's commonly known. Jordan says Jesus' braces were on display at Notre Dame, but was saved by a bowl cut as it burnt to the ground. Lassie saved him. So again, if everybody knows that Timmy fell down the well, will somebody please explain to me how they got him out of the well? 14. Objective reality and consensus reality are two different things. So what the Mandela affected are doing is they're building a consensus. And the consensus they're building is no more connected to objective reality than the mainstream news. We're talking about consensus building, which isn't the same as, it's not like they're reality testing, and we've illustrated this at length. A new Mandela effect, they're saying that Werner von Braun was Warner von Braun, and reality changed. So what I would ask is then, if you're going to assert that Werner von Braun used to be Warner, then please go through his family tree and explain how this works, because the Warners and the Werners would be two different families. Flat Fact says no one alive was at Salem, so it's historical hearsay. Oh yeah, many people even question if anyone was hanged, if it was all just a story invented to make Christians look hysterical. And this is one of the reasons why the crucible was something you had to learn. It was part of demonizing Christians. Okay, next. Those were my 15 comments. So Joel Osteen or Joel Osteen, Mandela effect or observational error. So this is another one that's been brought up. The claim is that Joel Osteen used to be Joel Osteen or whatever. You know who we're talking about. Let me put him on the screen here. Okay, so a couple of things about this one. Joel Osteen, Osteen. His name is Joel. So my explanation for this one, because they're saying that this is further evidence of a reality shifting phenomenon, that Joe Osteen is now Joel Osteen. You see how dumb this is, right? Commenter says nothing is an absolute reality, so everything is permitted. Oh no, that's the Assassin's Creed, Hassan Subah. Nothing is true, everything is permitted. And you can find that all throughout the occult literature, Western occultism. So for that to show up here as like the ethos of the Mandela effect, it shows you how new agey it is. Okay, so the Mandela effect claim, of course, is that the name changed. So what I'm explaining here, my contention is that Joe is a very common name, and Joel with an L is not so common. Osteen, I think we can all admit here, is an unusual name. And so you're learning it because it's probably the first time you heard it. And so the first time you heard it, the L sound from Joe, as in Joel, that you heard as Joe, carried over into the Osteen. So people separated Joe from L Osteen, or the L sound. So phonetically, if you were to pronounce Olstein and Lolstein, or the L sound and then Osteen, it sounds the damn same. So, how is that a claim to support shifting reality? A couple of the things, though, I was looking at his logo and the symbolism. If you know what you're looking at, and most of you here do, it's pretty evident. The guy's definitely Satan. He may not be Mandela affected, but this is the devil incarnate. But if you look at his logo, they put the L above the OS. So it actually looks like Joe. Joe is in the circle. It actually looks like Joe L. Osteen, but it's Joel Osteen. You see what I mean? Like, how difficult is this to come up with a possible explanation that doesn't involve shifting realities, right? Okay, next. Again, this is just another example of a so-called Mandela effect that they brought up. The affected in their own words. So here's an interesting comment from an affected by the name of Brad Stenquist. Brad says, our co-consciousness amends the matrix. Much bigger changes are imminent. Anonymous Trump official said that we won't recognize the world in 3 years. So some of the QAnon believers are seeing the Mandela effect as actual signs from God. So you have this Donald Trump political savior. You have revelations today in the form of QAnon. You have the unsealing of the list of baddies, trust the plan, we're going to reveal the bad guys. You see Donald Trump signing the damn Bible. A Baron Trump is a time traveler using suppressed technology, suppressed Tesla technology. And then, of course, they have this Great Awakening. Well, the Great Awakening, the unsealed or the unsealing of the sealed indictments that QAnon is promising, this is actually a form of political secular rapture. And Trump is definitely a savior in it. And so you have a Mandela effect. It's saying that we're not going to recognize the world in 3 years, which was what Trump said. He's saying that we don't recognize the world because, as Trump said, it all changed. They're mystified. So let's talk about the everybody knows argument just for a minute here. Should we tolerate it? Is this a good enough argument? Because if you say everybody knows is a good argument, you have to acknowledge then that you're making a case for the mainstream. Because everybody knows it isn't what you thought. So then, what constitutes everybody? 90% or 10% or 1%? Because they're claiming to be everybody. And so their excuse is, well, everybody hasn't been told. And so here's the need to proselytize. And this is, of course, where the religious aspect comes into it. So, appeal to the people, a fallacious argument. It must be true because people believe it. This is a fallacy, as you all know, and I'm just reminding the affected. Appeals to popularity are common in commercial advertising. Instead of communicating the merits of the product, they say everybody loves it because they know this is an emotional appeal, because people want to fit in. Oh, everybody's into it? I want to be into it too. So it's a bandwagon, and this has been associated with that effect as well. So, this is the thing. The Mandela effect is based on consensus agreement. And I think that consensus agreement isn't the same thing as truth. And people are putting community over truth. And really, they should do whatever they want to do. But I just don't want to be branded a non believer because I know the truth. Here's another example. One of the Mandela effects that they have right now is that our kidneys have moved. Your kidneys have moved. So, what does this mean? Well, if your kidneys moved, then the people who learned how to do kidney transplants have had to have what, relearned it, or their learning changed? I mean, there are so many things, I think, ripples, in other words. So the claim that our kidneys moved are based on the idea that our kidneys are under the protection of the rib cage, and they don't believe it used to be so. So they call this an anatomical ME. So if you didn't know, an anatomical ME is a Mandela effect when your body changes. Like your body physically is changing with this changing reality. So now you, whether or not you believe it or choose to accept it, you're more flexible than you used to be. And your heart moved. Your heart moved. Now it's in the center. Your intestines are higher up. I mean, according to the Mandela effect. So, human kidneys before the Mandela effect. Here's a sketch. And what this guy says is, remember the old kidneys? Kidneys and ribs used to have nothing to do with each other. The kidneys were in the back near the spine. If you put your hands on your hips, your thumbs would touch your kidneys. Your uteruses were shorter. Kidneys were low set, just above the hip bone. So here's a diagram supplied by this affectee. And yes, it was probably drawn with crayons. So what they're saying, okay, so that's a bladder. And those are kidneys. Okay. So these have been relocated. This is how they used to be, and now they're up here. Interesting, right? So how did they come to the conclusion that the human kidneys moved? Here's what they say. They say the fact that kidney punches are illegal in boxing proves that the kidneys moved. They say, quote, why would it be illegal to do kidney punches if the ribs are protecting them? This is a quote by Mandela pusher Brian Staveley. Why would it be illegal to do kidney punches if the ribs are protecting them? I mean, that's a valid question, right? Objective reality. Kidney punches are illegal in boxing because all punches to the back and the back of the head are illegal in boxing. Here's a trainer who says, when you punch loops around the opponent's lower back on either side, location of the kidneys, this punch is illegal because punches to the back side of the body are not allowed, nor is punch into the back of the head. A kidney punch can be dangerous to your health, and it can be easily damaged. Okay, so kidney punches are illegal because it refers to a punch in the back, not because they're not protected in any way. Here's another one. Mandela effect about the Flintstones debunked. Now, it's not technically a debunk because it was never bunked in the first place, but you know what I mean. So, with regards to the Flintstones, and let me go ahead and show you what we're looking at here. According to the Mandela effectees, it used to be Flynn stones, and now it's Flint stones. Flintstones, and now it's Flint stones. So, how did that happen? How did they get this one wrong? And if you look it up, you can actually see it says Flintstones with two T's, as in a flint and a stone. So here's my explanation for it. First of all, the claim is, of course, that their names have switched. And I'm saying I see a pattern here. They work at a rock quarry, and their surnames allude to this. Rubble, as in Barney Rubble, equals rocks. Flint is a stone. It's a very specific type of rock used to start fires. So Barney Rubble, Fred Flint Stone makes sense because there's no such thing as a Flynn. What is a Flynn? It wouldn't match the context. They work at a quarry. So what's more likely? That Flintstone was the original name and that reality changed from the meaningless Flintstones into Flint Stones? Or that it made sense from the beginning? Thirst for Truth says all the fabricated characters at Truth Frequency Radio are frauds. They pick up the same paychecks as InfoWars, owned by the same guy, Ted Anderson. Cam B says Crow 777 is cool with Owen Benjamin now and Jaron etc. Yeah, I thought that was an interesting call. Crow 777 called in and he was speaking to Owen Benjamin about coffee enemas. And I'm like, wait a minute. Owen Benjamin's like super against, well, anything having to do with that. And so he's talking to a guy about various substances he puts into his cavities. And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, he calls Ben Shapiro a sodomite. Anyway, let's continue. I mean, coffee enemas. What the? Okay, here's another one. Mandela effect. Is this Mandela effect residue? Or is it a bad tattoo? So there is a claim, again, by the same Mandela pusher, initials BS. We'll just say BS because they don't want to name names. I won't name names. So BS says that the American flag used to have a red line beneath the blue square. And a lot of people got tattooed based on this. So my question here is, was this guy tattooed before the shift? And after the shift, his tattoo didn't change? How come his tattoo didn't change? So what's more likely? His tattoo missed the reality shift, which apparently only changes like 99%. It's not even that effective. It leaves so much residue, right? But how come it didn't get his tattoo? Now here's a quote from the guy who owns the tattoo. Sometimes I think that the Mandela effect is here to weed out those who are aware of their surroundings and those who are not. These seemingly insignificant changes can show who's paying attention and who has their head in the clouds. You'd think that most people would pay attention to the flag of their country. And if it changed, why didn't anybody notice? How many Americans recognize that the position of the stripes have changed? The current flag has a white stripe directly under the blue box, but in the previous reality it was a red stripe. I remember this specifically from drawing the American flag as a child. Go Find the Other says, I remember Flint Steins. See, I remember Flint Stain. That's why I don't get it. It's always either or. There could be multiple options. I remember putting Jif peanut butter on my Fruit Loops, spelled Frui, watching the Flintstones after a long night of reading the Berenstain Bears. No, Stein. Pash Love says the movie Dark City is a great example of Mandela effect. It is actually. It is. And that movie has a metaphysical explanation. The movie doesn't have objective reality. In that movie, they're in a simulation. So yes, you're correct. It is a great example of the ME. Okay, so this guy remembers the flag from drawings he did as a child. Just like people remember that South America is below North America from drawings they did as a child, because North is up, South is down. Here's my explanation. Memories formed as a child often form around elementary versions of highly nuanced things. This explains many of the Mandela effects. South America didn't move. Adults use maps that are more nuanced. Reality has nuance. It doesn't change. It has nuance. It's complex. My notes are all on my blog. You can click the link there. It's called subscribestar.com/Tim Osman. It's my personal blog. Feel free to subscribe to it, follow it, message me there if you want. Okay, so I just wanted to go through my basic, I had these 15 comments about the Mandela effect. I wanted to refute some of the ones that were thrown up today, and I did want to make a few statements about the use of the ad populum argument for anything, which I don't think it should stand. And speaking of logical fallacies, calling the non-believers non-believers, or calling them denialists, or calling them shills, or NPCs or zombies, or whatever you call them, that's another logical fallacy. You're saying, we're not going to take their reasons seriously because they are this. And that's not really honest, and it is definitely fallacious. Okay, so I went through all the points I wanted to bring up. I wanted to keep this short, about an hour. I am going to be back later to take calls for sure on this topic and others. I did put a link to the blog below, so definitely subscribe so you don't miss what we have coming up later on today. It's going to be interesting because what we're witnessing here, I think, is as far as from an observation of, I guess, anthropological or sociological observation, we're looking at sort of like a Jonestown thing happening, like Jim Jones. And the Kool-Aid that they're drinking is being called out as something potentially toxic, causing people to question it. So it's kind of an intervention, although I don't intend for it to be.
It's a creeper beat, man. Come on. You know it.
You're playing, man. Infinite things, man. The play society. Infinite plane, infinite plane, infinite plane, infinite plane. Doing my thing, do my thing, do my thing, do my thing. Infinite plane, yeah. I live on an infinite plane. I live on an infinite plane. They telling me different things. That's supposed to be pulling the strings, but I know they playing the games. Since I found out today, I live on an infinite plane. I ain't playing no games. I'm on a different plane. I live on an infinite plane. I know the news is fake. They're trying to choose my fate. I know the views is fake. They pushing the global stage. Fake news on the radio wave. All the hoax, the whole world is a stage. Body double like I'm Saddam Hussein. Doing my thing. Don't want the fame, just trying to make change. They took out my page. But an infinite gang, infinite plane, playing no games. Infinite gang, we ain't playing no games. Infinite plane, I'm on an infinite plane. Infinite plane, the world that I live in is strange. Cause I'm on an infinite plane. I'm doing different things, yeah. I'm on an infinite plane. I'm on an infinite plane. I'm on an infinite plane. Stay with the infinite gang. Supposed to pull the strings, but they can't follow the game.
Tracks today.
I'm on the infinite plane. Infinite gang, man. That's in your mouth.